I am staring at a federal court order that just dropped, and I cannot make sense of what I am reading. I mean, on the surface, this is exactly what we've been begging for. The Chief Judge of the Eastern District of Virginia just stripped Lindsey Halligan of her U.S. Attorney title, finally, after months of this circus. But here's what's eating at me, what's keeping me up right now as I am recording this. The math doesn't add up, the dates are wrong. And I think I know why the judges waited so long to act, and honestly, it terrifies me more than if they'd just done nothing. Let me back up because this story is absolutely bananas, and if you haven't been following it, you need to understand how we got here. Lindsey Halligan. Remember that name because it represents everything broken about how Trump operates. She is a novice prosecutor. And when I say novice, I mean she had zero prosecutorial experience. Zero. But she was one of Donald Trump's best friends, one of his personal attorneys. So around October, Trump appoints her to be the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia. Not just any district. This is one of the most important federal districts in the entire country. This is where you prosecute major national security cases, terrorism cases, cases involving the federal government itself. And what does Trump want her to do? Two things. Go after former FBI Director James Comey with criminal charges, and go after New York Attorney General Letitia James, the woman who successfully sued Trump for fraud with mortgage fraud indictments. I am not making this up. That was the plan. That was the whole reason she got the job. Now, here is the thing about appointing federal prosecutors. We have rules. They were not suggestions. They rebaked right into the Constitution. Article 1 gives the Senate the power to confirm these appointments. You can just walk into the job because you are buddies with the president. There's a process. There's a statute called the Vacancy Reform Act that lays out exactly how you fill these positions when there's a vacancy. You can elevate the deputy, the first assistant who is already there. You can bring in someone who has been Senate confirmed for another position, like if you wanted the Secretary of Agriculture to somehow be the U.S. Attorney, at least they went through Senate confirmation. Or you can appoint someone temporarily for 120 days while you get your actual nominee confirmed by the Senate. 120 days. That's it. Trump didn't want to do any of that. He didn't want to put Lindsey Halligan through the Senate confirmation process because, let's be honest, she probably wouldn't have made it through. So he just appointed her anyway. Just put her in the job. And she started working. She got indictments. She actually got grand juries to indict James Comey and Letitia James. But both of them, Comey and James, they immediately challenged her authority. They said, wait a minute, you're not legally the U.S. Attorney. You weren't properly appointed. This is unconstitutional. And they were right. A federal judge named Judge Curry held a hearing, looked at the evidence, looked at the law. And on November 24th, Judge Curry issued an order that was absolutely devastating. She ruled that Lindsey Halligan was illegally appointed. The indictments she obtained were invalid. And here is the key part, the part that matters for what I am about to explain. Judge Curry stripped Halligan of her title and declared that there was a vacancy in the U.S. Attorney position that needed to be filled by the judges of the Eastern District of Virginia, November 24th. That was almost 2 months ago, and for 2 months, we've been sitting here scratching our heads. Those of us who cover this stuff, we've been banging the drum saying, where are the judges? Why aren't they meeting? The Vacancy Reform Act requires them to get together and fill this position. They have the authority. They have the obligation. What are they waiting for? I'll tell you what happened in New Jersey when there was a similar situation. The judges got together immediately. They appointed someone within 24 hours. Trump fired that person 24 hours later, but at least the judges tried to do their job. Eventually, they bounced Alina Habba, Trump's other unqualified attorney appointment, and the Third Circuit affirmed it. But in Virginia, nothing. Crickets. Radio silence. Lindsey Halligan kept showing up to work every single day, calling herself the U.S. Attorney, wielding that power, making decisions, even though a federal judge had ruled she had no legal authority to be there. From where I am sitting, she's been impersonating a federal officer since November 24th. But nobody stopped her until today, January 20th, 2026. Chief Judge Lauck issued an order. And on the surface, it's what we wanted. It strips Lindsey Halligan of the U.S. Attorney title. It declares there is a vacancy. It solicits applications to fill the position. The judges are finally acting. But here's what is driving me crazy. Here's what I cannot understand. The order says the vacancy was created today, January 20th, because that's 120 days after Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, appointed Halligan on September 22nd. The order acknowledges that Halligan can to serve beyond 120 days after her appointment, and 120 days from September 22nd is January 20th. Okay, fine. That is technically accurate math. But what about November 24th? The order doesn't mention it, not once. There's not even a footnote. No acknowledgement that Judge Curry already ruled on this. No explanation for why they are treating today as day one of the vacancy when another federal judge declared the vacancy almost 2 months ago. And Ivy read this order. It's only a page and a half. Ivy gone through it line by line. There's no mention of Judge Curry's decision. No mention of the earlier U.S. attorney who quit or was fired because he wouldn't go after Comey and Letitia James. His name was Eric Severt, a Republican. And when he left, that created its own vacancy issue that Halligan's appointment couldn't legally fix. None of that is in Chief Judge Lauck's order. It's like someone took an Etch-a-Sketch and just erased November 24th from history. We restarting over. The vacancy begins today. And I think I know why they did this. I'm not saying I agree with it. I am saying I understand the calculation they made. And it fills me with this deep sense of dread about where we are as a country. The judges were scared. They didn't want a head-on confrontation with the Trump administration while Lindsey Halligan was still claiming the position, while Trump's Department of Justice was still backing her. They waited. They let the 120 days run out. They let Trump's own deadline pass. And only now, when they can say the appointment expired on its own terms, are they willing to act. They cowards. I'm sorry, but see what this looks like to me. They had the law on their side. They had Judge Curry's order. They had the Vacancy Reform Act. They had every legal basis to act in November. But they were afraid of the political firestorm, afraid of Trump's attacks, afraid of being the ones who directly defied the administration. So they waited until the problem solved itself. And you know what the worst part is? This might actually help Trump's lawyers. There is another judge in this district, Judge Novak. He's been going after this hard. He called out Lindsey Halligan. He issued an order demanding that the Department of Justice explain why she's been impersonating a U.S. attorney since November and why she shouldn't be sanctioned, why she shouldn't lose her law license for what she's been doing. Last week, the Department of Justice attacked Judge Novak. They said he has no authority, he has no power. Lindsey Halligan isn't impersonating anyone. Judge Curry's decision only applies to the specific cases involving Letitia James and James Comey. It doesn't apply to the whole district. She's still the U.S. attorney everywhere else, which is absurd. But that's been their argument. And I was thinking, okay, Judge Novak is going to destroy them. He has got Judge Curry's order. He has got the law. He is about to throw the book at the Department of Justice for this ridiculous position. And then Chief Judge Lauck drops this order. This inadvertent life preserver for Trump as DOJ. Because now, do you see what they were going to argue? They were going to go back to Judge Novak and say, look, even your own chief judge doesn't believe there was a vacancy before today. She doesn't mention Judge Curry's decision. She doesn't reference November 24th. She is treating January 20th as day one. So how can you say Lindsey Halligan was impersonating a U.S. attorney when the chief judge of your district is saying the vacancy just started? Your own chief judge disagrees with you. And Judge Novak, if he wants to rule against Halligan, if he wants to sanction her, he now has to buck the Chief Judge's position. He has to say, no, I am reading Judge Curry's order differently. I think the vacancy started in November. Even though the Chief Judge's order suggests otherwise, it is a mess. A completely unnecessary mess that could have been avoided if the judges had just done their job 2 months ago. I want to be clear about something. Chief Judge Lauck was appointed by Barack Obama. This isn't some Trump judge running interference. I don't think this is corruption. I think this is cowardice. I think this is what happens when the judiciary is so afraid of political backlash that they engineer these elaborate workarounds to avoid direct confrontation. And maybe I'm wrong about this. Maybe there is some legal nuance I am missing. Maybe there is a strategic reason to handle it this way that I am not seeing. I am open to that possibility. But from where I am sitting, this looks like the judges waited until the clock ran out so they wouldn't have to be the ones who directly fired Lindsey Halligan. They let Trump's own deadline do the work. And in the meantime, for almost 2 months, an illegally appointed prosecutor has been wielding federal power, making decisions, running an office, all while impersonating a U.S. attorney. What does that say about our system? Here is what the order says now. They re-soliciting expressions of interest in the U.S. attorney position. You've got 21 days to submit your application, your resume, your confidential expression of interest in the job. I joked with my team that I am going to apply. But all kidding aside, this is serious. The judges are finally acting. They're going to appoint an interim U.S. attorney until the Senate confirms someone permanent. That's what should have happened in November, but the damage is done. The precedent is set. If you are the president and you want to install an unqualified loyalist in a critical prosecutorial position, just do it. Ignore the law, ignore the courts, keep showing up, keep claiming authority, and eventually the system will find a way to accommodate you rather than confront you directly. That is the lesson here. You know what else bothers me? The complete lack of accountability. Lindsey Halligan spent 2 months pretending to be a U.S. attorney after a federal judge ruled she wasn't T. Where's her sanction? Where's her disbarment proceeding? Where's the consequences? Judge Novak is trying. He has got an order to show cause pending. He is demanding answers, but now he is fighting uphill against his own Chief Judge's framing of this situation. And Lindsey Halligan? She finally resigned this morning, January 21st, the day after the 120-day deadline passed. Convenient timing, right? She gets to walk away. She gets to claim she served honorably. She gets to avoid the fight over whether she should be stripped of her law license. Because that is what we do now, apparently. We let people violate the Constitution, ignore court orders, impersonate federal officials, and then we let them resign with dignity before there's any real consequences. I've been doing this a long time. I've covered a lot of legal controversies, a lot of constitutional crises. But this one hits different. Because it's not just about Lindsey Halligan. It is not even just about Trump installing unqualified loyalists in positions of power. It's about the judiciary's response. These are lifetime appointed federal judges. They have the independence to stand up to the executive branch. That's the whole point of lifetime appointments. You can be fired. You can be threatened. You have the institutional power to enforce the law even when it is politically difficult. And they blinked. They found a technicality, a way to avoid the hard confrontation. They waited for the clock to run out. And I keep thinking about what this means for the next crisis. The next time Trump or any future president tries to install someone illegally. The next time someone challenges the appointment. The next time a judge rules it's unconstitutional. What is to stop them from doing exactly what Lindsey Halligan did? Just keep showing up. Keep wielding the power. Keep making the system accommodate you. Because apparently, if you wait long enough, the judges will find a way to reset the clock rather than enforce their own orders. This is how norms collapse. Not with a bang, not with some dramatic constitutional showdown, but with a whimper. With judges who technically do the right thing, but only after waiting until it is politically safe. Only after the confrontation has been diffused. I am not saying the judges should have been reckless. I am not saying they should have ignored legitimate legal questions. But Judge Curry ruled in November. That ruling created a vacancy. The law required them to fill it. And they just didn't for 2 months, while an illegally appointed prosecutor ran one of the most important U.S. Attorney's offices in the country. You know what keeps me up at night? It's not just that this happened, it's that this is becoming normal. We're getting used to it. Every time Trump violates a norm, breaks a rule, ignores a court order, we go through this cycle of outrage and legal challenges and eventually some kind of resolution that doesn't actually hold anyone accountable. And the next time, it is a little bit easier. The next time, we were a little more resigned to it. The next time, the judges wait a little bit longer before acting. That's the slow erosion of the rule of law. Not a coup, not a takeover, just a gradual acceptance that the rules dawn to really apply equally. That if you have enough power, if you are willing to be shameless enough, you can just do what you want and the system will eventually find a way to accommodate you. I want to be wrong about this. I really do. I want there to be some brilliant legal strategy I am not seeing. Some reason why the judges had to wait. Some explanation for why Chief Judge Lauck's order ignores November 24th entirely. But I've read the order, I've thought about it, I've talked to other lawyers about it, and I keep coming back to the same conclusion. They were scared. They waited. And in doing so, they sent a message that the rule of law is negotiable when the political stakes are high enough. Here's what should happen now. Judge Novak should proceed with his sanctions hearing. He should rule on the merits of whether Lindsey Halligan impersonated a U.S. attorney from November 24th until today. He should rely on Judge Curry's order, which explicitly declared a vacancy. And if the Trump DOJ appeals, fine. Let them appeal. Let's have that fight. Let's get a clear ruling from the Fourth Circuit about when the vacancy was created and whether Halligan had any legal authority during those 2 months. The judges in the Eastern District should select an interim U.S. attorney quickly. Someone qualified, someone with actual prosecutorial experience. Someone who will run that office based on the rule of law, not based on Trump's personal vendettas. And Lindsey Halligan should face consequences. Real consequences. The Virginia State Bar should investigate whether she violated professional conduct rules by continuing to claim authority after a federal judge ruled she had none. Other bar associations should look at this, because if there is no price for this kind of behavior, it will happen again. But I'm not holding my breath. You know why? Because we've seen this movie before. Rudy Giuliani lost his law license eventually after years. Michael Cohen went to prison eventually. John Eastman is facing disbarment. Jenna Ellis got suspended. But it takes years of process, years of litigation. And in the meantime, the damage is done. The norms are broken. The precedents are set. And the next Trump loyalist willing to bend or break the rules sees that, yeah, there might be consequences eventually, but you can still do what you want for months or years before anyone actually stops you. That is where we are. I started this by saying the Chief Judge's order is what we wanted on the surface. Lindsey Halligan is out. The judges are filling the vacancy. The system sort of worked, but at what cost? After how much delay? With how much damage to the principle that court orders matter, that illegal appointments can just be ignored until it is convenient to address them? I don't know. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe this is just the messy reality of how our legal system works. Maybe the judges made the best decision they could given the political environment, but I don't think so. I think they had a moment to stand up clearly and unequivocally for the rule of law in November, and they chose to wait. They chose the path of least resistance. They chose to avoid the fight until Trump's own deadline made it unavoidable. And that choice, that instinct to wait and accommodate and find technical workarounds rather than directly enforce judicial orders, that is going to haunt us. Because the next time Trump wants to install an unqualified loyalist, the next time someone challenges it, the next time a judge rules it's illegal, everyone involved will remember what happened here. They'll remember that you can just keep showing up, keep wielding power, keep ignoring the courts, and eventually the system will find a way to let you save face. That is the precedent. That is what we just normalized. And I am furious about it. Not just at Trump, not just at Lindsey Halligan, but at the judges who had the power to stop this in November and chose not to, who let this drag on for 2 months, who issued an order today that erases November 24th from the timeline as if Judge Curry's ruling never happened. They had one job: enforce the law, fill the vacancy, uphold the integrity of the federal prosecution system, and they blinked. So what do we do now? We keep fighting. We keep calling this out. We keep demanding accountability even when it takes years. We support judges like Judge Novak who are willing to ask the hard questions and demand answers. We use whatever tools we have. We call our representatives. We demand that the Senate actually do its job and properly vet U.S. attorney nominees instead of rubber-stamping Trump loyalists. We support organizations that fight for judicial independence and the rule of law. And we remember, we document, we make sure that when the history of this period is written, people understand what happened, how an illegally appointed prosecutor wielded federal power for 2 months after a court ruled she had no authority, how the judges with the power to stop it immediately chose to wait until it was politically convenient. We remember so that the next time someone tries this, there's a record, there's a precedent, there's a paper trail showing exactly how this corrupts the system. Because here's the thing. I still believe in the rule of law. I still believe in the Constitution. I still believe that federal judges, with their lifetime appointments and their institutional independence, can be a bulwark against authoritarianism, but they have to be willing to use that power. They have to be willing to enforce their orders even when it's hard, even when it is politically fraught, even when it means direct confrontation with a president who will attack them on social media and call them enemies and threaten their legitimacy. That is the job. That is what judicial independence is for. And when they don't do it, when they wait and accommodate and find workarounds, they were not preserving the system. They re-undermining it. They reteaching future authoritarians exactly how much they can get away with before anyone actually stops them. And the answer, based on what just happened in the Eastern District of Virginia, is a lot. You can get away with a lot for a long time, as long as you were willing to be shameless about it. That's what keeps me up at night, not just what Trump did, but how the system responded. I'm going to keep covering this. I am going to keep watching what Judge Novak does with his sanctions proceeding. I am going to keep watching who the judges appoint as the interim U.S. attorney. I am going to keep asking why Chief Judge Lauck's order erases November 24th from the timeline, because this matters. This isn't just inside baseball legal procedure. This is about whether court orders mean anything, whether illegal appointments can be ignored with impunity, whether the rule of law applies to everyone or just to people who don't have powerful friends. And right now, today, based on what I am seeing in this order, I am not confident about the answers to those questions, but I am not giving up. Neither should you. This fight isn't over. The fight for accountability, for consequences, for a legal system that actually enforces its own rules, that fight continues. We just have to be clear-eyed about how much work there is to do, how deep the rot goes, how willing even well-intentioned judges are to accommodate rather than confront. That's the reality. That is where we are. And we either accept it or we fight like hell to change it.